Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. Hope everyone's having a great evening so far. I'm taking a look at our current weather map right now, and it looks like upstate New York in the northeastern part of a country is experiencing moderate to heavy showers that are continuing. Right now there is no severe weather threat to speak of, but that could be a little bit different back here further in Texas. Taking a look at the NOAA outlook for severe possibility, and we are looking at a slight possibility through the heart of Texas. There does remain a slight possibility for severe weather through Texas all the way through the capital region of New York. Other than that, nothing too significant as far as weather is speaking, but there's plenty of grand solar minimum news to report on tonight. First, let's take a look at our space weather conditions. Our solar wind speeds are sitting at a 419.2 kilometers per second with a density of 6.6. And taking a look at our sun, we are blank, and we have been this way now for 2 straight days. That's 64 days for 2019. And right now that's 57% of the year without sunspots. And we are expecting some geomagnetic unrest coming in from that southern coronal hole on April 25th, as well as the 24th through the 25th, I should say. Let's go ahead and put this in motion. And there we are. So this will, as we talked about on our last broadcast, which I believe was Friday night, we talked about the possibility of this southern coronal hole disrupting the southern part of our magnetic field, and it will. We're talking about solar wind speeds pushing somewhere between 500 and 600 kilometers per second. It is unknown if we are expecting a G1 geomagnetic storm at this point. It is unlikely. As we take a look at our star with any more active regions to be looking for, and right now, this is a pretty quiet sun. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and show us some stats as well. We don't have any sunspots. We don't see any around the bend. Solar X-ray flux is low. Proton flux is average to low. And the KP indices have increased slightly going into the overnight hours of the 23rd into the 24th, which is when we are supposed to expect some geomagnetic unrest and increased solar wind speeds. So pretty quiet, right? And here's something else that kind of happened here over the past several days. On April 13th, 2019, we had a TSI reading of 1360.328. Now, on the grand scale of everything, not a lot in value, but we have been monitoring now, and you guys can see back here on the scale where this is the average up and down from day to day. Here we have, this is a 1 day, and then the next time we peak, this is a day 5, and then day 3, and then 5-day peak, and then a drop, and then we get back up. It's been a while since we'd seen a continuous drop like this in TSI, and if I'm not mistaken, I haven't seen a reading in 1360.59, and I think maybe early 2017, late 2016, early 2017. So something to kind of watch here as we are getting closer to the what they call the peak of the minimum, where we really start to see solar minimum conditions start for real in late 2019 and early 2020. So interesting spike, and then over the last several days where I thought seeing TSI values jumping into the 1360.7 range was impressive because of how we have been watching them drop. But here recently, we've seen a trend of the values going up just ever so slightly, and now we're looking at values that, like I said, we have not witnessed in a little bit of time, and we'll keep an eye on this to see where this goes from here. Will this shoot right back up to where we've been, or does this stay in the lower section? Does this signal the next part and chapter of this solar minimum that we are experiencing now? So interesting space weather, and when we have interesting space weather, we get interesting seismic activity on Earth. Shallow and strong earthquake registered by the USGS, a 6.5 hit a western India Antarctic ridge at 1446 UTC time. This was on April 18th, 2019. There was no tsunami from this earthquake. And then we go April 18th still. All right, taking a look at another earthquake. This one here, a strong and shallow earthquake registered by Taiwan's CWB at a 6.1. It hit at 501 UTC time on April 18th, 2019, reporting a depth of 11.7 miles. All right. According to USGS, there was no devastation or any injury at that point. Move ahead to April 22nd. Another 6.1. This one killed at least 16 people, as this one made direct landfall. The other two earthquakes were either out to sea or too far away to matter, but this one did matter, unfortunately. A strong and shallow earthquake registered by the USGS, marked as a 6.1, in Luzon, Philippines on 9/11 UTC, April 22nd, 2019. It says here that there were at least 12 people have died in the town of Porac, northwest of Manila, after a wall of a supermarket collapsed and at least 14 remain missing. A very unfortunate situation. Larcacs were reported in the roads across the province. The quake injured about 81 people and damaged 29 buildings across Luzon. So obviously, out of the earthquakes that we were just talking about, this one had the most impact. And Watchers.news is all over when it comes to the earthquake and volcano. And here's a 6.0 out in the middle of the ocean. But still, another 6.0, April 22nd. This one hits around 1449 UTC. Let's see, the one previously... that was the first one was 1446. Just looking at some of these UTC times here, folks. A lot of, right here, the West Antarctic Ridge one hit at 1446 UTC time on April 18th. And then we have one here on April 22nd at 1449 UTC time. No tsunamis, no injuries, no deaths of any kind from this earthquake. Just another seismic uptick, a 6.0 or higher to mention. And then the same day, a 6.1. And oh, I'm sorry, folks, that was a repeat there. We already talked about that. How about this 6.1? 6.1 in Pradesh, India. And this happened on the 23rd, today, at 2015 UTC time. Registered a 6.1. There's a lot of 6.1 earthquakes in just a span of about 5 days. And right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in just 5 days of 6 point or higher. Again, no injuries or fatalities were reported, but this is fresh information, and we will keep you guys updated to the best of our ability here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. And today as well, earlier in the day, I should say, about 7 hours prior to that, we had a 6.4 in the Philippines, the second strong earthquake in 24 hours. This is the second M6 plus earthquake to hit the country since the deadly 6.1 on April 22nd. So, damage right now, nothing coming in. No injuries at this point, last check. But it seems like when we get a break as far as what to talk about with the weather, and the other side of Grand Solar Minimum, which we don't really talk about a whole lot, and we probably should, but there are weeks where we are just overwhelmed with weather events after weather events, whether it's Europe or the United States, And here, just in the last 5 days, I mean, we got 7 strong earthquakes and 2 6.1 or higher in the same region. One area that killed 16 people. Thankfully, this one did not kill anybody. So definitely an uptick in seismic activity. Also, it's safe to say that a gun also had an explosion. So we've got multiple strong earthquakes, several significant volcano eruptions that are in constant eruption phase right now. This is the part of grand solar minimum that I don't think we cover enough. Like I said, we're usually overwhelmed with weather headlines, but John Casey, people we've learned from like him, where we know that he's predicted between 2017 and somewhere around 2037 that we will see a major volcanic eruption and an increase in seismic activity as we continue through solar cycle 25 and we continue to descend towards the grand solar minimum. So these next 3 years are going to be something to watch for everyone who's been telling us that this is just the beginning. And if that's the case, this is just the beginning. And, is this possibly also the beginning of further decreased output in total solar irradiance as well? So total solar irradiance drops, and we get a huge uptick in earthquakes, strong ones, right after this plunge in TSI. So interesting correlation that we have some significance. And yes, it is significance. We don't see the TSI fluctuate more than a value of 0.1 at most times. This drops here at 0.4 in just a couple of days. That's plummeting. And then, like I said, several days after this plummet in TSI, we experienced several earthquakes that are stronger than a 6 point. So just something to look at, interesting to keep an eye on as well. And another interesting article that some Caltech seismologists have identified nearly 2 million previously unidentified tiny earthquakes that occurred between 2008 and 2017 in Southern California, expanding the region's earthquakes by catalog by a factor of 10. Now, this went from 180,000 to 1.81 million earthquakes reported now. They received somewhere around 495 earthquakes on a daily basis. Tiny ones, folks. But what's interesting to me about this time scale here is we're talking about 2008 and 2017. And 2008 was solar cycle 24's deepest minimum. It is predicted it was reported to be one of the deepest minimums in 150 years in that 2008-2009 solar minimum cycle. And so as we look at 2008-2009 wrapping up a minimum cycle, or the peak of it, and we look at the numbers for 2017 as it's descending into another solar minimum, interesting facts to look at, folks. And this is a segment I like to call Letters from Uncle Hans. Good friend of mine who keeps in contact with me from time to time. A very well-respected young person. Former UN. I won't go any further than that. But he has some very interesting times and stories to share with me. And he likes to share these tidbits of facts that I think I'm a moron for not sharing more of these. I've got several of these emails from Uncle Hans. Let's call him Uncle Hans. And today, Uncle Hans writes, April 21st, 2019, Caribou, Maine notched its 163rd consecutive day with at least 1 foot of snow on the ground. Counting from November 10th, 2018, pulverizing its 155-day record from back in November 16, 2002 through April 20th, 2003. highlighting the post-2000 uptrend. Caribou's 2007-8 winter won bronze with 152 days between November 19th through 07 through April 19th of 08. And further confirming post-2000 cold, Caribou's 164.7 inch is this winter is the third gold. So each winter he's talking about here in the 2008, 2007, and then going into the 2017 winter continues to increase in snow, saying that Caribou notched longest ever 132 consecutive days of at least 1 foot of snow on the ground, burying the 1968-69 record of 120 days, which 12 days breaking the record is pretty impressive of at least a foot of snow on the ground. Four of the 5 snowiest Northern Hemisphere winters struck in 2007, 2008 through 2013 and 14. New England's 2014-15 blizzard, all records from 1871. February 2015, students also had to leap from second floor windows. The Northeast Snow Impact Scale, high impact nor'easters, including January's 2016 records, Mid-Atlantic Northeast blizzard, to now total 29. So look at this high impact scale, folks. And there's those numbers, 2017, 2018. So it starts in 2008 through 2009 minimum, leading up to the current minimum we're in right now, 2017-18. All right? And look at how many high-impact snow events we have had just in the past 10 years, last cycle. And this is why I should have been sharing these along. So some of these are hard to read. Uncle Hans puts his words together. He gets excited. But this right here, this scale really puts things into perspective. And when you've got your AGW folk out there talking about, oh, it's warming, we're not going to see snow past a certain time and blah, blah, blah. What are your answers to things like this? And proof that the last minimum that we were in was the deepest in 150, and this one right now, NASA's predicting for it to be a deep one as well, if not deeper. So if we've seen this many high impact snow events in just the last 11 years, imagine what we're going to see in the next 4 years. And everything that we've talked about on this channel and other channels alike have been right so far. Each year since 2016, we've been on a decline on solar activity, lack of TSI, lack of sunspots, lower solar wind speeds leads to a much wavier jet stream, a very out of control, a weak polar vortex leads to more chances for polar Arctic air to be dispersed across the United States. And we're going through that right now. And all signs are pointing ahead, folks, that this ain't going to let up anytime soon. So it's very, very crucial that we start learning how to adapt as soon as possible, because all the stats are pointing towards it. And like I said, Hans has all these great charts and graphs and all these stats here and showing us here where we're at with the snowfall. The Boston 10-year running mean seasonal snowfall. Check this out. It's getting more. There's more snow now than there was before during the heart of global warming, and we've jumped up and continue to jump up. Here is the 2009-2010 all-time snow record. Just again proving the point. All these people that predicted in 2019 that their kids wouldn't see snow again, and then we shattered records that year. Baltimore, 79.9 inches of snowfall for the year. It broke a record from only of 1995 to 96. A lot of these records were broke just a few years back. And then the airports here. Reagan National Airport, 55 inches. Last time that record was set was back in 1898, 1899 winter with 54.4 inches. Wilmington, Delaware, I believe, 66.7. That broke that record in 95. Most of these records are from 99. The oldest one, obviously, was Washington Reagan National Airport. Again, very good facts here from Uncle Hans. And this email is just chock full of records. And what he's trying to point out here, I know we see things from 2012 and 2013, 2014 and 2015, and the point he's making here is that Al Gore and them in 08 and 09 were telling us that snow was not going to be around, and you know, that the ice caps were melting and sea level rise and all this other you know what. And then we start seeing these 112-year-old snow records start to fall. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We're supposed to see less snow. And now here in the late part of the first decade of 2000, we start to see an uptick in snowfall, and it continues to this day. So guys, I'll get more into Uncle Hans' letter, and maybe I'll have to share some more from this, but I've got tons of these where he just sends me documents with links attached to it. And this man, very, very reliable in my opinion, just from hearing his experience. But the one thing that always stuck out about Hans, the first time we ever met, we talked about how global cooling has been kept under wraps for so long. And he once asked another UN diplomat, how come we never talk about the sun's relevance to the climate? And the diplomat replied, and I won't name what country, but the diplomat replied, because it's too inconvenient. The sun is too inconvenient to talk about. That's pretty much had me in from day one with this guy. And just the information that he shares with me is outstanding. He does his own research, and he basically is pointing out all these snow records, all these cold records, everything that was predicted not to happen, happening right in front of our faces. So interesting stuff here. Thank you, Uncle Hans, for your insight as always. And we'll be right back, guys, just in a few. So don't you go anywhere. Hang on a second. All right, we're back, and unfortunately some bad news here. Dozens killed after severe floods and landslides hit KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. At least 33 people have been killed after mudslides hit the South African province on April 21st and April 22nd. Search and rescue operations are in progress, and the death toll is expected to rise. Heavy rain is expected to last at least through Wednesday on April 24th. The province is experiencing heavy rain since the start of the Easter weekend, resulting in flooded roads, collapsed buildings, and downed power poles. The government reported dozens of incidents of collapsed walls and flooded homes. Hundreds of people were forced to evacuate low-lying areas. An AFP photographer reported on Hindu temple in Durban was entirely flooded, with water levels up to 33 feet. At least 23 people died in Durban and 10 more in other parts of the province. Take a look at some of this footage here on watchers.news. They always do a great job of collecting information. And too many times we've seen these pictures from around the world. Areas with landslides, flash flooding in villages. Here we see the houses giving way. Nothing to cheer about for sure, unless I'm just confusing their dialect. A scary situation, especially when you live in villages like this, where these homes, heavy rains, and of course, This does not look good. People are probably frantic right now as buildings are collapsing. And we are reporting. Now, this also comes right after Watchers.news did a special segment a few days back about the high amount of landslides that they've reported on this year alone. And they keep coming in. The footage for rainfall and landslides. Here we are, highway situation. It looks like we're in lakes. So just all kinds of extreme weather in this region is continuing to happen. And we were, like I said, we were just talking about this region getting hit pretty hard with floods this year. We just dealt with Tropical Cyclone Idai, which, by the way, we're looking at over $118 million that was given to this part of the country for rebuild. Now we are eyeing Tropical Cyclone Kenneth that is set to strike the Comoros, Mozambique, Tanzania this week, just about a month after Cyclone Idai devastated parts of southeastern Africa. So we have these recent landslides killing 33 people. We had Idai that just happened over a month ago. It was reported that over $118 million so far has been paid back to that region to rebuild. And now we're talking about another tropical cyclone to hit this area that right now it's getting its butt kicked when it comes to Mother Earth. And just look at that. And that's just basically the foundation giving way and just the building collapses and crumbles. I hope nobody was inside that house. Very, very, very scary times for these people right now. The storm, which the French Meteorological Agency calls Tropical Cyclone Kenneth, was about 200 kilometers north of Madagascar Tuesday and heading towards the Comoros Islands. The U.S. Department of Defense Joint Typhoon Warning Center says that late today, the tropical storm will have sustained winds of about 90 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 120 kilometers per hour as well. Both U.S. and French warning centers forecast that the storm will pass over Comoros tomorrow with gusts nearing 150 kilometers per hour. By late Thursday, it will be on the coast near the border of Mozambique and Tanzania, with gusts topping 200 kilometers an hour. After it makes landfall, the storm is expected to weaken into a tropical depression on Friday, with wind speeds dropping below 75 kilometers an hour. So we'll have to keep our eyes on this storm. And I knew something was a brewing once again. The Weather Channel is actually making headlines about keeping an eye on this particular storm. And, just the unfortunate 1-2 punch that we're seeing right now from this region. These folks here have had enough as far as when it comes to storm damage and loss of life. As this continues, the early storm season of 2019 has not been nice to this region of the world right now. Extremely heavy rainfall hits Spain. Costa Blanca hit by heaviest April rain since 1946. Severe storm affecting parts of Spain from April 18th to April 22nd. Dropped extremely heavy amount of rain. Produced waves of 9.8 feet. The worst affected Costa Blanca, over 200 kilometers, that's 124 miles, of Mediterranean coastline in the province. Nice. Sorry about that, folks. Nearly 400 people have had to be evacuated, mostly from Benidorm and Torrevieja, after heavy rain turned roads into rivers, submerging cars, and flooding homes and businesses. We can look at the rain totals here. I'm not going to begin to pronounce some of these cities, but we've gotten lots of rain in 48 hours. And just like we've always talked about, the constant of cosmic rays influx and its particular influence on the atmosphere, seeding our clouds, increasing the amount of precipitation that we see falling from these particular storm systems. 6 inches of rain in 24 hours is a lot. It's even in 48 hours, that's still a lot of rain. 6 inches. A lot of places don't get that in 2 months. And to get that in 2 days is incredible. And just think if we would continue to get storms like that on the regular through a weekly basis, 3 to 4 times a week. You know, the magnetosphere is only weak now. You wait. Again, this is only the beginning. Sangor farmers claim 80% crop loss, accuse authorities of improper reports. Wow. So it's not just the farmers here in the United States. Farmers in the town of Sangor, state of Punjab, India, said a massive hailstorm hit the region on April 17, 2019, destroying 80% of their crops. Farmers accused authorities of improper reports, saying revenue department officers visited villages, not their farms. The rain and hailstorm have caused around 80% damage to the standing wheat crop in various villages in the Sangor district. It's likely to add to the debt to the farmers, but officials or officers concerned have shown only 20% loss, which is an injustice to us. So check that out. 80% crop has been damaged or destroyed, and officials are only saying that 20% is at a loss. And we thought we had it bad here with corrupt government. That face says it all right there. They are not being taken care of. We'll leave a link in the descriptions here. Thank you to the watchers.news. Tons of information to cover on that website. It's been very busy. Seismic. We've seen several landslide reports. Tropical storm Adai. Now we're focusing on Kenneth. Crop loss across the region, across the world. It is nonstop, folks. And so we kind of switch gears here. This caught my eye. Professor Peter Ridd, a marine geophysicist of James Cook University in Townsville, was terminated after rejecting research linking Great Barrier Reef changes to human action. Peter joins the show to share his side of the story. There's a podcast for this, and I listened to it. Anthony apologizes as well for his audio. His mic, something was up with that. But keep your volume down a little bit through the headphones. It won't be too bad. But the audio of the guest is just fine. Now, this man was fired from his position at the James Cook University for his opinion and his evidence that points that the Great Barrier Reef changes are not caused by man-made climate change. And again, just like everything else right now, that us deniers are being, when we get called deniers, because we say things happen in cycles. Not once does anybody say that climate change isn't real. We just don't believe the theory that man has caused it. And here we go again with another theory that man causes barrier coral reef changes. And this man here who studies it, and he's a geophysicist, knows what he's talking about, and points out a lot of a lot of the cycles here, and how these changes happen regularly, just like solar cycles, just like ocean cycles. So if you got an extra 30 minutes on your hands, guys, I highly recommend you guys checking this podcast out. Very interesting interview, very educational as well. I'm not well versed about the barrier reef, but I can tell you that I understand now what the big argument is, and AGW is definitely pushing that man has everything to do with changes down here. But interesting podcast. I invite everyone to check this out as well. And Earth Day, not a single environmental protection of the last 50 years has come true. The Earth Day is almost feels like we should be carving some turkey. Why? Because we have a lot to be thankful for since the first Earth Day event occurred 49 years ago. We should be thankful that the gloom and doom predictions made throughout the past and several decades haven't come true. Fear-mongering about explosive population growth, food crisis, and the imminent depletion of natural resources have been a staple to Earth Day events since 1970. And the common thread among them is that they've stirred up a lot more emotions than facts. By the year 2000, if present trends continue, we will be using up crude oil at such rate that there won't be any more crude oil. Ecologist Kenneth Watt warned around for the first time during an Earth Day event. You'll drive up the pump and say, "Fill her up, buddy," and he'll say, "I'm very sorry, there isn't any." Watt also warned of global cooling and nitrogen buildup, rendering all the planet's land unusable. Well, interesting. That hasn't happened. In fact, he forgot to take in effect of how much CO2 is in the atmosphere right now. So when you have a nitrogen buildup in the atmosphere and in the bedrock and an increase of CO2, well, that makes all plant life on this planet more, let's just say, accepting of the CO2 and nitrogen. In fact, it makes plant life thrive when you have increased CO2 and nitrogen in the bedrock and in the atmosphere. These plants, the leaves, thicker, bigger, greener. So this is nothing but, plant food here. Life, basically. So he warned of global cooling and nitrogen buildup, but he forgot to talk about how great plant life would be because of the CO2. These people don't always use their heads, I guess, when they make these predictions. The issue, however, is that the present trends do not continue. They change dramatically for a number of reasons. Innovation happens, consumer behavior changes. Importantly, price signals play a huge role in communicating information to energy producers as well as consumers. Higher prices at the pump encourage companies to extract and supply more oil. Expensive gas prices, meanwhile, motivate entrepreneurs to invest in alternatives to oil, whether that's batteries, natural gas vehicles, or biofuels. Drivers will examine their consumption options as well, whether carpooling, finding alternative models of transportation, or over time purchasing a more fuel-efficient vehicle. You can read on here at what's up with that. But this website is great at one thing, and that is pointing out all of these climate alarm people out there who are predicting the world to end, ice-free, no snow, sea level rise, more increased hurricanes, which hasn't happened yet, by the way. And we also haven't seen the ice caps melt. We also haven't seen sea level rise to the extent where these alarmists have predicted. We also have miraculously ridded ourselves of the drought situation that back in just 2015, people in California were saying this was a permanent drought. This will always go on because of climate change, because of human man-made climate change has turned California into a permanent drought situation. And that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, right now the United States is virtually drought-free. We're talking spotty, a 3 to 8% spread of areas that might be in very weak drought conditions right now. Compared to last year, the Southwest, incredible what's happened in the last year. And just like we said, and I keep repeating myself, I sound like a broken record, but we've said this every year. This is going to get worse. And we are seeing things happening on a much faster scale. And the next several days are going to be interesting for me, just to watch TSI, see if they continue to fall, or do they rebound nicely and shoot right back up into the values that we were used to seeing. I talked about how there hasn't been a lot of weather events to talk about this week so far. Well, hold on to that thought because I'll go over our GFS outlook here in a minute. But even though we don't have anything to talk about here in the U.S., that doesn't mean worldwide we're not dealing with other issues. whether it's volcano eruptions, whether it's mudslides, landslides, earthquakes of 6.0 magnitude, flooding, drowning rains, destroying crops, hailstorms. I mean, yeah, the U.S., the continental 48 caught a little bit of a break for a few days. Okay. The rest of the world's getting beat up right now. So let's take a look at GFS. And right now we are dealing with a little bit of a minor system moving through the northeast to bring rain. Severe chances in the heart of Texas will carry into Thursday morning through Wednesday. Wednesday through Thursday, and increases chances for severe weather across the south once again. Louisiana and Mississippi. Mississippi, by the way, as far as the farming situation for you guys, you're looking at a 1.1 day of suitable field work. Believe it or not, the rest of the South is between 3 and 4 days of suitable days in the field. The worst areas right now that are affected by suitable farm work, of course, is going to be North and South Dakota, Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, and then Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. You guys are also in that 1.8 to 1.1 days of field work. But believe it or not, Nebraska's improved to over 3 days of suitable field work. So we're starting to see some improvement through the South, parts of the East, and the central part of the United States, but still a problematic situation for North and South Dakota, Minnesota, and parts of Illinois, Indiana, and believe it or not, Ohio as well, as they're looking at only about 1.8 days of suitable field work to this point. So as we know this, we look at the GFS forecast outlook. By next weekend, we see a significant system rolling through the south once again, probably causing more problems for Mississippi, and then the wheels fall off by the time we get to Friday, April 26th. The Northeast and the East Coast, you guys are going to get your fair share of moisture and some heavy moisture near New York City as well, as this system moves out by Saturday night, right before we have another system. And we were just talking about North South Dakota, Minnesota being problematic still for farmers. That does not change at all for the weekend of April 27th. That's right, we still have snow chances out here, folks. For people across the northern plains, you're sick of it. I get it. This snow chance actually is existence for Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan. In fact, guys, it's not out of the question to see the UP anywhere from 5 to 8 inches of snow this late in the year from this particular outlook right now. The GFS model is showing, and the jet stream is showing this too, it's going to be cold enough for snow up in the UP. So would not be surprised that we see a late winter snow blast, one last push from Old Man Winter here April 28th, Sunday, as this system moves mainly into Canada, and believe it or not, overnight Monday into Monday morning, snow chances for western central New York and possibly upstate New York for Monday, April 29th. Now these are probably higher elevation chances. We'll take a look at the snow as well. But as we look back into the plains, more snow developing through Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and another shot of snow through northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and heading once again into the UP of Michigan. And this storm kind of gets its act together. Look at this monster. By April 30th, the last day of April 30th, we are looking at a pretty big storm. The backside of it is going to be collecting a lot of snow in the Rockies, Wyoming, Montana, parts of Nevada, even Northern California is going to get some significant snowfall from this. But look at the stretch of moisture that we're going to see from this system going into May 1st. That is still May 1st. Heavy rain across most of the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic states. And by May 2nd, we will see this roll into the Northeast. And just a flow of cold air just coming in from BC and Alberta and continuing to feed in more snow showers across the Northwest. So very below average like temperatures right now for the Northwest. Still plenty of snow chances for you guys in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and even parts of Colorado on May 3rd. And look at this behemoth of a system moving through the United States in parts of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. This is a large low pressure system as it sweeps across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley into the northeast by May 4th, and still more snow trailing in the northwest, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. I sound like a broken record, but we continue to see snow chances flow in from BC and Alberta into the northwest United States, and lots of precipitation for the Midwestern, Mid-Atlantic states and the Northeast of the United States. So we get a bit of a break in the South, guys. There's high pressure sitting down here in the Atlantic, and that's part of the reason why the South is getting a little bit of a break, is this high pressure is rotating the moisture away from the deep South for now. So thanks to the high pressure, this is why we are seeing a little bit of a bubble of protection for the South. And really that high pressure system sets up somewhere after this system right here, which we are experiencing right now, between today, tomorrow, and the night after. Once this system goes through the South, there's a bit of high pressure that follows and kind of parks right here in the Atlantic, and it's responsible for churning everything this way. So basically it's taking the moisture from here and spinning it away from the South, and you guys will see that once we get the map in motion. There's that high pressure in the Atlantic spinning everything away from the deep South, almost like a force field barrier from the deep South, and we don't see another decent chance of significant moisture. The GFS is indicating somewhere around May 9th as a chance for some south moisture. But really, guys, some crazy temperatures coming up in parts of the United States, still expecting chances for snow going into May. And this is what our temperatures are going to look at in the first week of May. So look at that. The deep South, you're talking 90s, possibly pushing hundreds on the Atlantic side of Florida and Georgia. Let's back these temperatures up a little bit. So here we are, April 20th. This is this past weekend, kind of cool still across the Northeast. A little bit of a warm-up through the East Coast and the Mid-Atlantic states. As we get into Thursday, a little bit back to normal temperatures, 60s, 40s for the lows in the Northeast. Heating up across the South and the central part of the United States, and then a little slight cold front comes through on the 20th. This is where we're looking at this chances of snow. Look at this. The 29th, there's some colder air that comes in from the Arctic through Canada, parts of Montana, and that's where we're going to see that chance of snow, believe it or not. So the temperatures do support what the radar is showing us. We could see snow flurries on Monday, April 29th, here in upstate New York. So if you like that 74-degree reading that you had in the capital region today, just know next Monday it's going to be the complete opposite, with snowflakes flying in the air at night. But then a very quick warm-up after that. We're in the mid-40s, and then we quickly reach the 60s by that Thursday into the weekend. Most of the country in the the Central Plains, Midwest into the Northeast, the East Coast will be in nice springtime temperatures. Still flirting with the 50s in most of the parts of Maine. But as you see here towards the end of this, now it's almost like a tale of two stories here. By the time we get to May 9th, half the country's experienced spring/summer, while the other half is still experiencing a very mild winter-like scenario with nighttime temperatures low enough to support any kind of snowfall overnight and accumulation as well. But some hot weather on the way, guys. Spring is definitely here. Bear with these temperature swings here a couple more weeks. But for the most part, the cold air seems to be losing the good fight. We get one more big push around April 29th of cold air. And then after that, we just start getting into season. And, we're getting further into May. It's going to be harder to see those cold shots of air. Hopefully all those snow chances will finally start to recede by this point of the month in May, as far as snow and all that goes. All right, let's take a look real quick at the El Nino 3-4 region. The area is warming up a little bit, water temperature-wise. The graph, however, does not reflect that, in my opinion. The 3-4 region stays pretty neutral and barely El Nino conditions. Remember, folks, you have to be a 0.5 above baseline Celsius, and right now it's at 0.615 above baseline Celsius. So interesting stuff here to see us in the neutral still, and continue to be that way, as we will see how much longer. Right now, El Nino looks like it's losing its energy and might be sputtering out here soon. With that being said, Mari, is there anything you would like to mention tonight before we take off for the evening? I know you mind the chat very well, and
I do. It's my throat, Jake. I'm sick, so I'm gonna do the best I can. So here we go. Ian Fenn, our good friend over across the pond, he says we're lovely people and we're the best show in the business.
Well, that's very nice of you, Ian.
Ian, you're wonderful. Thank you.
Our favorite Viking.
And we got a super chat by Justin L. He popped in for a little bit and then he ran away from us. I don't know where he went, but thank you, Justin. Very kind. Lots of new faces in the chat, Jake. I'm just getting to know some new people. Lady T, she planted a bunch of potatoes in like a 5-gallon bucket and they're sprouting now for her.
That's good.
They're sharing their planting and prepping information and talking about other weather weirdness worldwide. That's all I got.
Awesome. We'll keep it short and sweet tonight, guys. Tune in. I think we'll do another broadcast either Thursday or Friday night, and Saturday we might even have something planned for you as well. We're slowly getting back into the swing of things here at the Grand Solar Minimum News channel, so please bear with us, stay patient, and we will get back to making that great content that we have been doing for the last 3 years now, and we're going to continue to provide you guys with the latest and up-to-date Grand Solar Minimum News. With that being said tonight, guys, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, and be sure to catch us again later this week. Until then, folks, we will talk soon.